Life doesn't come with a manual. But what if it doesn't need one? What if the answers you seek aren't hidden in some distant place, but already flowing all around you, waiting to be noticed? Think about it. The rivers don't force their way to the ocean. The wind doesn't struggle to move. The seasons don't resist their changes. Nature follows its rhythm effortlessly, and everything falls into place. But we resist. We grip tightly onto plans, expectations, and the illusion of control, only to find ourselves exhausted, frustrated, and stuck. Have you ever wondered what would happen if you stopped resisting life and started moving with it? What if, instead of trying to control the waves, you learned to ride them? Take a moment. Really think about this. Imagine how different your life would feel if you let go of the constant need to force things. Because here's the truth. The more you fight against life, the harder it pushes back. But when you learn to flow with it, everything changes. Today, I want to share something with you, something that could completely shift the way you experience life. You see, peace and freedom aren't things you can chase. They aren't rewards that come from controlling everything perfectly. They are already here, hidden beneath the noise of your mind, waiting for you to uncover them. And the way to find them is not by grasping tighter, but by letting go. This idea isn't new. For centuries, philosophers, sages, and spiritual teachers across cultures have pointed toward the same truth. Life has its own flow, and when you align with it, you discover a deep and unshakable peace. Thinkers from Taoism, Vedanta, Stoicism, and even modern psychology have uncovered profound insights into the art of surrender, how to stop resisting life and start living in harmony with it. And today, we're going to explore how these timeless teachings can transform your life. But this isn't just philosophy. This is something real, something you can feel and experience for yourself. So, as we go on this journey, I invite you to reflect deeply, not just to listen, but to see yourself in what I'm saying, to recognize your own patterns, your own struggles, and your own moments of resistance. And before we dive into today's profound insight, I want to take a moment to ask you, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and give this video a like, not just as a favor, but as a way of saying yes to this journey of reflection and growth. Because sometimes the smallest actions set the biggest changes in motion. Because by the end of this, you might just see life and yourself differently. There's a strange habit we all seem to have, this need to control, to grip life tightly as if holding on to it harder will make it obey us. But have you ever tried to hold on to sand? The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips through your fingers. That's what control is like. The more you cling to it, the more life resists. Think about it. How often do you find yourself trying to force things to go exactly as planned? You map out your future, set expectations, picture how people should act, how situations should unfold. And then, when life inevitably moves in its own direction, what happens? Frustration, anxiety, maybe even anger. And yet, has that ever truly worked? Have you ever been able to command life into perfect obedience? Or have you, like all of us, found yourself exhausted, chasing something that never quite comes the way you expected? See yourself in this. A time when you desperately tried to control something, maybe a job, a relationship, a goal, and no matter how hard you pushed, it slipped further away. What did that feel like? Did you find peace, or did you find suffering? Let me tell you something about control. It is an illusion, a trick of the mind. We believe that if we just plan enough, prepare enough, work hard enough, we can make life bend to our will. But life doesn't work that way. Life moves according to its own rhythm, like a river carving its path through the earth. And no matter how much we might want to redirect its course, the river will always flow where it is meant to. The real question is, why do we cling so hard? The answer is simple. The mind craves security. It wants guarantees, predictability, control over the unknown. And at the center of this is the ego, the part of you that says, I must be in control or I will suffer. Your ego doesn't want to admit that life is unpredictable, that no matter how much effort you put in, things might not go your way. It doesn't want to face the truth that some things are beyond its grasp. So what does it do? It builds walls. It creates a false sense of control through rigid plans, through expectations, through the belief that if you just try hard enough, you can control every outcome. But here's the irony. The more you seek control, the more out of control you feel. The mind races, trying to solve every possible problem before it happens. You anticipate every potential failure, every possible disappointment. You rehearse conversations in your head, strategizing how to make people act the way you want. You stress over the future, as if worrying will somehow make it safer. And what does that lead to? Burnout, frustration, a life spent constantly fixing, managing, adjusting, never truly resting, never truly living. Look around. Society feeds this illusion. You're told that success means having a 5-year plan, that happiness comes from controlling your surroundings, that if you're not constantly improving, optimizing, and staying ahead, you're falling behind. You're expected to have it all figured out, to mold your career, your relationships, your body, your finances into a perfect picture. But perfection is an illusion, and chasing it is exhausting. Think of the pressure. You must be productive at all times, or you're failing. You must have a perfect relationship, or something is wrong. You must have a clear life path, or you're lost. And if you don't, then the fear creeps in, the fear of failure, of not being enough, of losing control. But here's the truth. You were never in control to begin with. Not in the way you thought. Imagine trying to tame the wind, grabbing at the air, trying to force it into a shape, to make it move the way you want. It's impossible. The more you fight it, the more it slips through your grasp. But what if, instead of trying to control the wind, you learn to move with it? What if, instead of fighting against the current of life, you allowed yourself to float? Ask yourself, what would your life feel like if you let go of the need to control everything? If you accepted that some things are meant to be uncertain? Because here's something to reflect on. Real peace isn't found in controlling life. It's found in trusting it. And once you understand that, everything changes. Imagine you're caught in a strong ocean current. The waves are pulling you in a direction you don't want to go. What's your instinct? To fight, to thrash against the water, to swim as hard as you can back to where you think you should be. But the more you resist, the more exhausted you become. This is how most of us live. We fight reality. We insist that things should be different, that people should act a certain way, that our plans should unfold exactly as we imagined. And when they don't, we suffer. This is the trap of control, the belief that if we resist hard enough, life will bend to our will. But life doesn't work that way. When you resist the natural flow of life, what happens? Stress, because you're constantly trying to control the uncontrollable. Frustration, because reality refuses to obey your expectations. Disappointment, because when you measure life against what should have been, you always feel like you've lost something. But here's what no one tells you. Life was never wrong. It was only different from what you imagined. Now, imagine what it would feel like to trust that process, to move with life instead of against it. In Taoism, there's a concept called Wu Wei. It translates to effortless action or going with the flow. Now, this doesn't mean giving up. It doesn't mean becoming passive. It means aligning yourself with the natural rhythms of life instead of resisting them. Think of water flowing in a river. It doesn't fight against the rocks, it moves around them. It doesn't force its way forward. It flows effortlessly, always finding a path. And yet, over time, water shapes even the hardest stone. What if, instead of fighting life, you moved with it? What if, instead of resisting every change, you adapted? Let's look at nature. A tree that refuses to bend in a storm will break. But a tree that bends with the wind survives. Which one are you? Are you the rigid tree, resisting every challenge, demanding that life stay exactly as you want it to be? Or are you the flexible one, adapting, flowing, allowing life to move through you instead of against you? Think about a current struggle in your life, something you've been resisting, something that hasn't gone according to plan. Now ask yourself, what if I stopped fighting? What if I allowed this moment to unfold, trusting that something greater is at work? Because here's the truth. Life isn't something to control. It's something to align with. And when you do, that's when true peace begins. Most people misunderstand the idea of letting go. They hear the words and think it means giving up, being weak, surrendering to failure. But true letting go isn't about losing, it's about wisdom. It's about knowing what is within your power and what isn't. It's about learning the difference between action and attachment. Imagine life as a vast, flowing river. The current moves steadily, always carrying you forward. But instead of flowing with it, most of us fight against it. We try to swim upstream, exhausting ourselves in the process. We cling to rocks and branches, fearing what might lie ahead. We panic when the river takes an unexpected turn, even though the water knows exactly where it's going. But here's the thing. The river has never needed your control. It has always known the way. The moment you stop thrashing, the moment you stop fighting, what happens? You float. You don't sink. You don't drown. You move effortlessly with the current. And suddenly, instead of fear, you feel something else. Freedom. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you stop putting in effort. It means you stop resisting what is. It means you take action where you can, but you release attachment to the outcome. You trust that even when things don't go according to your plan, they are still going according to a greater plan. Because here's what no one tells you. When you let go, you make space. Space for new experiences. Space for unexpected opportunities. Space for life to bring you something better than what you were so desperately clinging to. What if, instead of seeing life as something to control, you saw it as something to trust? What if, instead of forcing, you flowed? What if, instead of resisting, you surrendered not in weakness but in wisdom? Because life will never go exactly the way you planned. But if you trust it, if you let it carry you, it will take you exactly where you need to be. So, tell me in the comments, what's one thing you've been holding on to that, deep down you need to release? Take a deep breath. Imagine placing it into the river. Watch it drift away. Feel the lightness. This is what freedom feels like. Let's take a step further. You've seen how clinging to control creates struggle. You've felt the weight of resistance. And maybe, just maybe, you've started to sense the freedom that comes with letting go. But now, I want to offer you a perspective that can shift everything. Not just how you handle challenges, but how you see yourself and your place in this universe. In Vedanta, an ancient school of Indian philosophy, there's a teaching that says the self, Atman, and the universal whole, Brahman, are one. At first, this might sound abstract, but sit with it for a moment. If this is true, then you are not separate from life. You are not some isolated being struggling to navigate an unpredictable world. You are life itself. Let that sink in. Every tree, every river, every breath of wind, everything in existence flows as one great unfolding. And you are not outside of it. You are part of that unfolding. Now let's take this even deeper. Imagine the ocean for a moment. Waves rise and fall constantly. Some are gentle, some are fierce. Some last for only a moment before disappearing back into the vastness of the sea. Most of us go through life believing we are just a single wave. We attach our identity to that one form, our name, our past, our struggles. We fear the moment the wave crashes because we think it means the end. But what if you are not the wave? What if you are the entire ocean? The wave is just a temporary expression of something far greater. It is born from the ocean, shaped by the currents, and eventually returns to where it came from. If you understood this deeply, if you knew you were not just a fleeting wave, but the entire vast, endless ocean, how would that change the way you move through life? Would you still fear change? Would you still cling so tightly to control? Or would you trust the ebb and flow, knowing that no matter what rises or falls, you remain? When you stop seeing yourself as separate from life, you stop struggling against it. Because struggle only exists when there is resistance, when we believe we are fighting against something outside of ourselves. But when you realize that life is not happening to you, but through you, everything shifts. Think about this. When the wind blows, does it argue with the trees? No. It moves freely, bending branches, but never breaking itself. And when the seasons change, does nature resist? No. It embraces the cycle, life, death, rebirth, without fear, without hesitation. Now, what if you lived like that? What if you moved through life like a river, flowing instead of fighting? What if you embraced change like the wind, unattached, unburdened? What if you trusted your journey the way the earth trusts the turning of the seasons? Right now, in this very second, you have a choice. You can continue seeing yourself as just a wave, isolated and struggling against the inevitable. Or you can remember what you've always been, the ocean itself. Now let's talk about something we all struggle with: acceptance. Not just the kind of acceptance that comes with resignation, but the deep, liberating kind. The kind that lets you exhale fully. You see, life doesn't ask for your permission before it unfolds. It doesn't consult you before throwing unexpected changes your way. Most people live in reaction mode. Something happens, and before they even process it, they react. Anger, frustration, stress. But what if I told you there's a gap between what happens to you and how you respond? A space of absolute freedom. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived the horrors of a concentration camp, once said, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." Think about that for a second. Right now, you might believe that your emotions control you, that anger rises, and you have no choice but to lash out. That sadness comes, and you have no option but to sink into it. But that's not true. There's always a space, a moment before you react. Next time something triggers you, try this. Pause, just for a breath. Inhale, count to 3, and exhale slowly. That's it. A single breath is all it takes to create that space. Let's try it now. Take a deep breath with me. Inhale, hold. Now exhale slowly. Feel the difference? That's control, not control over life, but over yourself. Next time someone cuts you off in traffic, instead of honking or cursing, pause. Feel the space. Next time someone says something hurtful, before you snap back, take a breath. Feel the space. Next time you feel overwhelmed, before drowning in it, step back. Feel the space. You don't have to be at the mercy of every emotion. You are not your reactions. You are the one who chooses them. Because life isn't about controlling every situation. It's about mastering your response to it. And that is true power. So, we've explored some of the deepest truths about life. We've uncovered the illusion of control, the power of presence, the wisdom of surrender. But now, the real question is, how do you actually live this? Because understanding something is one thing. Living it is another. See yourself right now, taking these ideas beyond just words, beyond just something you listen to, and making them part of your life. What would that look like? Let's go over what we've learned: mindfulness, observing thoughts without judgment, being present in this moment. Acceptance, letting go of resistance, allowing emotions and events to flow naturally. Trust, recognizing that life has a flow of its own, and it carries you exactly where you need to be. But let's make this real. Let's make it something you don't just think about, you experience. I have a challenge for you. For the next 7 days, I want you to let go of one thing you've been holding on to tightly. Maybe it's a grudge that's weighing on your heart. Maybe it's an outcome you're trying to force. Maybe it's the need to be in control of something that's beyond you. For 1 week, instead of gripping it with tension, practice loosening your hold. Observe what happens. Does life fall apart, or does it actually become lighter? Do things start to move more effortlessly? Do you feel a sense of relief you didn't expect? And here's the most important part. Come back and tell me in the comments. What did you let go of? What changed when you did? I want to hear your experience, because this isn't just philosophy, this is life, and you are living it. The more you surrender to life, the more life opens itself to you. The more you let go, the more you gain. Not control, but peace. Not certainty, but freedom. Not just existence, but true, effortless being. This is your invitation to flow. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with them. Because sometimes the right words at the right moment can change everything. If you love this and want more like it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. It really helps support this journey of deep reflection. And more importantly, I'd love to hear from you. What part of today's insight resonated with you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. Until next time, trust the flow, embrace the moment, and keep exploring the depths of life.